The steps undertaken in a musharaka. In musharaka, two or more persons provide finance for a project. All partners have a right to work for the joint business. However, this is not a necessary condition. Any of the partners can be a sleeping partner, authorizing the others to manage the business. All partners are entitled to share the profit in a pre-agreed ratio. The losses, if any, are to be shared exactly in the proportion of capital invested by each partner. Musharaka is useful in financing of manufacturing, trading, or any business venture where the bank is willing to act as a partner. Rules for a valid Tabarak. Rule number 1. Sale and repurchase is not permitted by Sharia. Let us look at our earlier transaction in a different way. You buy the car from A on credit. Then, instead of selling it to B, you sell the car back to A for cash. This is a case of sale and repurchase which is not permitted by Sharia. The correct transaction will be, you buy the car from A on credit and then sell it to B on cash payment. Rule number 2. There must not have been a prior arrangement between the three parties. Rule number 3. There must be an interval between each purchase and its subsequent sale. This is to expose the parties to price risk. Gains from the transaction should be a reward for risk borne. For Sharia compliance, it is necessary that actual purchase and sale should take place along with transfer of ownership and related risks. So as I said, I need about 70,000 dirhams. How do we go about it? Profit calculations and accounting in Murabba. How do I repay your investment? Through my share of the profit. However, the profit cannot be claimed or realized unless the capital is recovered or maintained intact. Profits will be shared at a percentage or ratio of the realized profit. In order to avoid uncertainty or gharar, these percentages shall be clearly agreed upon at the time of entering into the contract. In any case, we cannot specify an X amount as profit for either of us. Profit thus earned will be divided between you and the bank. I hate to ask this, but what happens if there is no profit? If there is no profit, all financial losses will be borne by the Rabbul Mal. There will be erosion in the capital. The entrepreneur's expertise will go unrewarded. How will the accounting be taken care of, and what all will be considered when calculating the profit? Now that is an important question. We may agree on an accounting period of 1 year. In your case, all expenses for running the clinic, salaries of the staff, medicines, utility bills, rent of the premises, all these expenses will be subtracted from the total annual revenues. Profit, if any, will be shared between you and the bank. Provisional accounting will be made every month. What if there is a loss in 1 month? If the business has incurred a loss during 1 month, but has made profits during the other months, the profits shall be used to offset the loss during the year. The balance profits, if any, shall be distributed between the Rabbul Mal and the Mudarib in the agreed ratio. What about my salary? I'm sorry, you will get no salary. No salary? Don't worry, we can agree on a compensation for your services as a doctor. This, by custom, is not a part of the Mudaraba operation. Therefore, this agreement will be separate from the Mudaraba contract. Also, since you are a partner, you will be getting a share in the profit against your management services. We will also mutually decide on an amount that you could draw every month on account basis. The amount withdrawn on account basis will be adjusted against the Mudarib's profit share at the end of the financial year. What happens if I am unable to pay the difference amount to the bank? Don't worry, the agreement between us will take care of all such eventualities. Loss in a year can be carried forward and adjusted against the profits of subsequent years. Initially, the tenure of the Mudaraba agreement between you and the bank will be for, say, 4 years. We will mutually decide in the agreement that a part of the net profits of a year will be kept as reserve for offsetting a possible loss in the coming years. Similarly, an amount overdrawn by you during a year can be carried forward to the next year. At the end of the Mudaraba, the amount in the reserve account will be distributed between you and the bank according to the pre-agreed profit-sharing ratio. Rules governing a qard transaction. 1. Both parties should be legally capable of entering into the contract. That is, they should be majors and should be of sound mind. Islamic jurists generally agree that 15 is the age at which one can be considered as a major. Two, the offer or ijab and acceptance or kabul must be clearly documented to avoid any conflict in the future. 3. Two witnesses must sign on the contract to avoid future disputes. Do Islamic banks give Qard al-Hasan to all those who approach them? No. Islamic banks manage the hard-earned money of their customers. We cannot give virtuous loans freely, as we are managing others' money. Strict credit evaluation procedures are followed before issuing the financial assistance. The borrower is required to put up some security for availing a Qard al-Hasan. However, the management and the shareholders of an Islamic bank may allocate a part of its equity capital to grant Qard al-Hasan to the needy. The funds accrued in charity accounts collected from defaulting borrowers in Islamic banks may also be given to the needy in the form of Qard al-Hasan for helping them set up small businesses. The security for Qard al-Hasan may be 1. A personal guarantee by a guarantor acceptable to the Islamic bank. 2. Any asset or property of the borrower that could be offered as collateral. In case of the borrower's failure to pay back the qard, the bank will have recourse to the guarantor or will invoke its charge on the collateral. But as you know, a true believer should not delay the repayment of his obligations. Islam highly emphasizes the timely payment of qard and dain. I hope there will not be any early demands for repayment of the qard before the due date. Although Sharia allows a lender to call back a qard before it has become due, it is generally discouraged. Both the Quranic and the Hadith injunctions encourage the lender of a qard to grant more time to the borrower if he has genuine reasons for being unable to repay on the due date. I have heard that some borrowers give a gift to the lender when repaying a qard. Is that true? It will be clearly stated in the qard agreement that there will be no extra payment. Sometimes, the borrower may give a gift to the qard lender as an expression of gratitude, although it is not obligatory to do so. By giving qard to the needy, you're doing a lot of good to the society. Yes, doctor, that is indeed our aim, that we all help each other in times of genuine need. Differences between ijara and a conventional lease. How is ijara different from conventional leasing? In an ijara lease, rent is charged only after the lessee has taken delivery of the asset. But in a conventional lease, the lease commences on the agreement date or the date when the bank releases funds for purchase of the assets to be leased, irrespective of whether the lessee has taken delivery of the asset or not. Charging rent before the lessee has taken delivery of the asset amounts to charging rent on the money disbursed. This is riba and thus prohibited by Sharia. In an ijara lease, all expenses and losses to the asset are the liability of the lessor, since the ownership is with the lessor. In a conventional lease, however, the lessor gets rent on his money and all expenses or losses are loaded onto the lessee. In an ijara lease, if the bank appoints the lessee as its agent to purchase the asset to be leased, the risk of the asset will be that of the bank, as long as the client serves as its agent for purchase of the asset. However, in a conventional lease, all risks are borne by the lessee. What happens if I am unable to pay the rent on time? It is forbidden in Sharia to charge any additional amount in case of default of payment of rent. That would amount to riba, which is impermissible in Sharia. However, in case of default, you may be liable to pay some money to charity. Understanding the spirit of Murabba. Many financial institutions commit mistakes in interpreting the spirit of Murabba. The most common mistake is using Murabba for all types of transactions and financing. Murabba can only be used where there is a tangible item intended to be purchased by the buyer. For example, a factory can avail Murabba to purchase raw material like yarn, but cannot get money to pay salaries or electricity bills. Another mistake often committed is when a bank sells an item before it is actually acquired from the supplier. Murabba financing cannot be implemented on items that are already purchased by their clients from the vendor. If the bank purchases the item from the client, then it is a buyback scheme, which is not permitted by Sharia. Another possible mistake is that the bank appoints the client as an agent to purchase the goods. The client purchases the goods as an agent and uses it without executing the actual Murabba sale. This sale is not valid. The law of contracts and the sale contract. What is a sale? A sale or bay' happens when two parties exchange a thing of value with either another thing of value or cash with mutual consent. A sale, aqd al-bay', may be in the form of cash, credit, or a forward sale. Islamic banks purchase goods with cash payments and sell to their customers on credit. Islamic law of contracts. The contract law is laid down by the Holy Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It is further elaborated by Islamic jurists. The two underlying rules of any contract would be prohibition of riba or interest and prohibition of gharar or absolute uncertainty. An introduction to riba. Faith in Islam prevents Muslims from borrowing money on riba. Islamic banks have now structured banking products and services that are halal or permissible under Sharia. Let us meet Azim and Hamid, two good friends. Both are devout followers of Islam and would not do anything impermissible or haram in the eyes of Sharia. Riba is the Islamic term for interest. Sharia frowns upon riba in any form. Azim or Hamid would not deal with any interest-based transactions. Before Islamic finance came into being about 30 years ago, only the very rich could really afford to purchase homes or realize their dreams. Since borrowing on riba is equivalent to declaring war against Allah, poor men like Azim or Hamid could hardly find the large sums of money necessary to fulfill their dreams. Islamic financial institutions today are creating a wide spectrum of financial products which are halal. Now, both Muslims and non-Muslims can approach any Islamic financial institution as they offer a range of banking products and services. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the e-learning program on Tabarak. In this module, you will learn about the concept of Tabarak. How does Tabarak work? The rules and conditions underlying a Tabarak transaction. The process of Tabarak. The application of Tabarak in Islamic covered cards. Let's recap what we have learnt in this module. The concept of Ijara. Under Ijara, the Islamic bank leases the use of an item or facility to a client against an agreed rental for a fixed period. The ownership of the leased item remains with the bank. Only its usufruct is transferred to the lessee. The steps to be carried out in an Ijara or lease contract. The basic rules of an Ijara contract. The period of lease and the rental for the full period is determined upfront. The lease period shall commence from the date of delivery of the property. The bank need not be compensated if any harm to the property is caused by factors beyond the control of the lessee. If the property has lost its function and no repair is possible, the lease shall terminate on the very day the loss has occurred. We also learnt how the Ijara can be terminated. You may now reinforce your learning by going through this topic in the illustrated textbook and check your comprehension on the subject by attempting the questions in the workbook. In the next module, we will learn about Qard al-Hasan. Operating and financial lease. Ijara is used as an alternative both for operating lease and financial lease. An Ijara that is not tied with a purchase agreement is known as operating lease. Ijara that culminates into ownership transfer to the lessee by any of the valid methods of gift or sale can be considered as financial lease in the Islamic framework. Ijara as an operating lease is suitable for expensive assets such as ships, aircraft, and heavy-duty industrial and agricultural equipment. Ijara with the effect of a financial lease is widely used in real estate, automobiles, computers, machinery, and equipment. This is the best method of acquisition if the equipment is used for a relatively short time or if it has a poor resale value. Ijara with the option of sale or gift is permissible as long as the transfer of ownership of the asset to the lessee is kept separate from the lease. Thank you so much for your time and patience. I think we can proceed with this transaction.